I thought I'd just read two short pieces. To me, contemplative reading is different than knowledge reading, right? So knowledge is you're collecting data and information to understand something. So if I'm like I was reading that this Swedish way of weaving, so I read a lot about the history of it and the structure of the weave, and so there was a lot of interesting homework there. But then the weaving itself doesn't take that much instruction. I just get a little bit of instruction and then I just start to work with it. And as I work with it, I come across problems, and then the problems I solve or I don't solve. And then the next time I do it, I get better. This is the way craft works. And the same with meditation, isn't it? If you are reflecting on cause and effect, you're fine, you'll learn. If you're just trying to get something, you learn nothing, usually, because you're not reflecting. Or if you have an idealized, well, that's an exaggeration, you'll learn something. But if you are just rejecting something and trying to get something else, then you won't be looking at causality. You'll just be driven by an ideal, some experience you had before, something the guru teacher told you to do, not do. That's not reflective. And for me, the teachings are from different traditions that I use are reflective rather than dogmatic. So say on something like rebirth, to me it's an article of belief because I'm not a psychic. I don't have any paranormal powers and gifts to know anything other than really this present moment, except my memory. So in certainly in Buddhist teachings and in our Buddhist culture, rebirth is a very important piece of the uh, understanding of how consciousness works. So, but I don't know that as an experience, but I use it as a kind of working hypothesis. So I don't have to reject it, but I realize that I don't really know it. So I say, well, okay, what if that is true? What if that is in fact true? Then I can work with it. Well, if it is true, then I better be careful. I better behave myself. There could be that way of thinking. Or the way I think of it more and more in my own context is consciousness body based. In other words, is consciousness a physical phenomena or an epiphenomena of the body? Or is the body in consciousness? Is physical reality, sense, experience in consciousness? And if I don't take the perspective of most modern science and I just observe, I kind of like, in my own observation, that this is taking place in consciousness. So I go for that one. Uh, and then I have, so that I have some kind of pragmatic experience of that. And then I practice with that. And then I find that that actually brings a tremendous amount of peace because I begin to find, call it a refuge, uh, an abiding, a home where the movement of sense experience is known, but my consciousness is not dependent on that. Happiness is, excitement is, and nervousness is, uh, all, different things that we experience, but that background isn't dependent on my experiences. So, okay, I like that. I'll go for that. So it's a conclusion I reach partially through suggestion, but partially through experience. And then over lifetime, that persists and it has good results. But at no time am I making any kind of doctrinal statement that there is rebirth, but I'm also not making any doctrinal statement against it. So I find that I'm not getting caught up in ditupadana, attachment to views. You could say that, I'm just thinking aloud, right? But you could say, well, you're attached to the view that the body or sense experiences in awareness, in consciousness. But that's not an intellectual position for me. It's not like I'm using that as a belief system. I'm actually using it as a perception. And what if I do that? And we say, well, this is in awareness. Well, that creates space, knowing, within which things come and go, and it's a peaceful solution. So it's not a function of intellect. If someone then argued with me, it's not true. I say, great, okay, you do your way, I'll do my way, uh, and I'm not bothered by that unless they're really abusive, and then I would be bothered, I suppose. Uh, so contemplative reading to me is that kind of avenue to explore things in ways which are not so complicated, not so complicated. If I take this model then of what I find uh, intelligible and useful, that the sense experience arises and ceases in awareness, then of course, when death comes, when the body dies, I might send you a postcard or not. I don't know. The question also comes up, well, what about dementia? And what about Alzheimer's? Don't know. That one I don't know. Um, is awareness, consciousness is present in Alzheimer's? You could say that. People are conscious, but that's beyond my ken. Um, then and that's one of the questions so infrequently, I think I've said this before, but I get asked by folk who have been diagnosed with terminal illness, cancer, and I could think of 3 women recently in the last few years, and they've got the terminal diagnosis and they're now in palliative care. And they came to me because they were good friends. I knew them for a long time. And they said, how do I do dying? Or how do I do living? Yeah. How do I do dying? And how do I deal with this? I said, well, I ask them that question every time. Do you think that consciousness is a physical phenomena, so that when the brain dies, there is nothing, blackness, whatever you want? And all of them, perhaps because they're Buddhist, because whatever, they say, no, no, I don't think consciousness dies with the body. Individuality does, yeah. Memory seems, memory has no hold, but that sense of presence or whatever that is. So they all said, no, I don't think that. And I said, okay, if that's true for you, then what would, why would dying be any different than living? Well, it'd be painful and nasty, and eventually I would lose contact with all my children and loved ones and grandchildren. Yeah, okay, so there's all of that, but that can still be known. So what if you just practiced awareness of the way things are and trusted and were curious about what happens to awareness when this body dies? And that might be a really interesting way to approach it. So why don't you use the uh, sadness you feel at not seeing your grandkids grow up as an object of awareness. The sadness arises in awareness, or can you use the uh, pain and the discomfort and the horribleness of your disease to practice witnessing of horribleness and pain and so on? And they could see that was the way to do it. And all three women had good deaths. They seemed to be quite mindful, and I didn't get any postcards. I don't know if I asked for postcards or rainbows. When my auntie died, I said, "Can you send me a rainbow?" There was a rainbow a few days later, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. So that is a way of, like, if you're with family who who don't have a doctrinal idea about Buddhism or whatever, and you want to talk, it's a kind of modern way you can approach these things. It's quite a reasonable way of considering. Um, and much of Buddhist talk can be about, not wanting to be reborn more than 7 times and wanting a good rebirth and that. But remember that the teaching actually is about isn't about a good rebirth, although that's mentioned. It's about that which is unborn. That which is unborn, not born, not die, is not the same as saying that which is eternal. Now, I don't know if that makes any difference for you if you're from Thailand with Thai language, but eternality would imply that Viradhammo lives forever. Very boring. I mean, how many knee operations can I handle? It's like, what, every 50 years? So that idea that me living eternally with how many memories I don't have, that's not the idea. It's not a sense of a self living eternally. And what what we're doing is we're observing that the sense of self arises and ceases, comes and goes. Personality comes and goes according to circumstances. And then hopefully we're not identifying with personality anymore. And then the questioning is, what didn't begin and didn't end? What was not born and did not die? And that's the contemplation that's from the Nibbana Sutta. There is the unconditioned, the unoriginated, the unborn. Um, and those words are obviously very strange, but they do speak to the fact that the only thing we really know is the present moment. You have memories of the past and you have projections of the future, and we have evidence of the past. We have archaeology and we have toothache. We have all those kind of things. But actually, in experience, we only have the present moment. And then if you stay with that curiosity of just the present moment, you begin to sense the silence of consciousness or awareness. If you, like this morning, I was suggesting um, paying attention to the very sense of I have a problem, say I am an angry person, or I'm a fearful person, or I'm not getting along with my partner, or I've got cancer, or whatever, and to that very I-ness. And if you notice and how personality comes and goes through thought, then you notice that when you really pay attention to that, there's a stillness. You don't pay attention to it, there's restlessness, low level thinking, me and my kind of thinking. But if you really pay attention to it, there's stillness. And that's the stillness of well, what is that? That stillness is, you always have access to that, actually. It's always a possibility. Consciousness is always there. But personality view and the identity with personality traits is very deluding, very deluding. Not bad for not having anything to say, huh? Yeah, you got to give me credit. I amaze myself. Let me read something. Um, okay, so contemplative reading or study. So read two pieces and then use them. Use them for self-investigation. You have the capacity of awareness. So be aware of the moments, of those moments when you feel imperfection, a lack, boredom, discontent. When I say be aware, I don't mean simply name them, then go away from them. Rather, give all your attention to the perception. It may take some time because in the beginning you may not be accustomed to looking at yourself. In exploring the boredom or lack, you will find you are no longer lost in it because you will be taken more by the exploration than the object. You will find space within you and the explored. You are no longer stuck in the boredom, the perception, and at a certain moment it suddenly dissolves and you find yourself in present clarity. And then the one more. Yeah, there's some bits here which are a bit complicated, but perhaps you find yourself at a bus stop looking at someone who strikes you as especially nervous or impatient. It interests you very much. You simply look, and you observe that the more the nervousness is articulated, the more relaxed you find yourself. When you come more and more to absolute silent observation, you uncover more and more of the observed. At first, the observed is emphasized, but your observing faculty is so strong that you are taken by it, and you feel yourself in a dimension of stillness that you never experienced before. It is very important. When observation becomes more and more relaxed, and memory does not come in, we really look at something. Then attention automatically unfolds and becomes increasingly without tension. There is no expectation. There is no anticipation. We find ourselves in an observation which is completely dimensionless. Real observation is a very important faculty which we must learn. Generally, observation is polluted by memory and thoughts, comparison, judging, and so on. When the observer remains as the controller, when he looks to take something of the observed, then the observer can never discover itself. Real observation is innocent observation, where no one is observing and there is no intention. Observation is welcoming, is openness. In sustaining openness, open alertness, there is a moment when the energy from the observed, free from all will, from all obtaining, goes back to the observer. Then there is a feeling of expansion, and you live in intelligence and sensitivity. Nice. So that's it for 45 minutes.